Good day, my name is Bobby Harrell. I am the Business Development Manager for Systems for Strand Lighting. Today we'll be doing a Strand NEO Family Console overview. So we'll be talking basically about capabilities, functions, what it can do. There is a separate training course for entry level applications, for how to use the desk. This is primarily more of a overview of the capabilities of the product, and we'll get started. So to understand the underlying concepts and operations of theatrical console, it's critical to understand how the console thinks. So once this is digested, a world of dramatic opportunities will open up to the lighting team. It doesn't really matter if this is for theater, dance, opera, corporate theater, houses of worship, live events, TV. The power of lighting can provide emotional gratification that would not otherwise exist. So Neo, this is our next chapter in our evolution of control. It's been around for a few years now, but it really does give you the ability to seize light, to grab it, to move, change position, color, really to motivate your lighting design very simply and effectively. It's the closest thing the designer can get to actually touching the light. It's a very expandable control system, catering for the needs and requirements of our most demanding customers. And we'll talk about some of what it can do. So it has icons and shutter control that represent it graphically. Uh, most most things that the console can do, you can choose to operate via command line, which is a more traditional way of working. You can choose to operate it graphically. So there's a lot of flexibility, and there's an incredible depth as to what this console can do. Um, there are 7 different types of effect engines. They're floating windows that can be manipulated and docked, very graphically friendly. Boot time is massively reduced with a solid state disk drive. So it's great for everyday use, for touring. We have it installed in a lot of permanent installations, museums, and things. So architainment. So it does have individually controlled backlit keys, motorized faders, a user security system, pixel mapping, media playbacks, and we think you'll find this a very powerful product. So some of the features and specifications. Uh, the Neo console can operate up to 100 universes of DMX per console. It has 10 motorized submasters, a motorized AB playback fader. There are also 5 motorized multifunction faders, which are primarily used for outputting cue list, effects playbacks, and others. Individually controlled backlit keys, which allows you, when you go into certain displays, keys that are unavailable will go dark. So it really helps you follow the flow of the features that are available to you. There are 4 indented push encoders on the right side of the desk. These are for parameter control. For those encoders, there are 4 color LCD screens which identify the parameter assignment to the encoders. There's a built-in keyboard drawer with storage in the USB port. Uh, the interface is a touchscreen capable interface, and for each show file you have primarily unlimited storage capacity for submasters, groups, cues, cue lists, palettes, effects. There's really no limit. There is a tempo button. You can function in tracking, cue only. There are ways to merge those two worlds of cue only and tracking. There's a very flexible shortcut system, powerful palette control with virtual palettes, timeline effects, pixel mapping, media playback, and you can, with multiple desks, do multi-user full tracking backup. In addition, there's a user security system, astronomical time clock with timed events, telnet interface. There are free Android and iOS remotes that are available in the iPlay Store and the Apple App Store. There's an undo history, which will allow you to restore back to every previous version of every cue that has ever been recorded in your show file. There is a visual timecode editor, a power monitor, color and position paths per cue. You can do blind pre-visualization with an external previs software and the Magic Sheet layout. So some of the basic hardware features, I'll just go in alphabetical order based upon this list. 10 motorized faders, traditionally used as submasters. They will have a single button, generally for bump buttons, but those can be turned into macros for advanced programming. B is the level wheel. This is primarily used for changing levels, although the level wheel plus the encoders have now been activated for graphical controls, so you can scroll your cue list, you can zoom in and out on your channel grid, scroll your ML view. This also works in patch as well as in the groups display. Let's see, D, USB ports for uploading software or external storage of your show file. There's a tablet well that's designed to fit an iPad mini. There are split grandmasters or two grandmasters. I generally recommend that you can put your conventional fixtures on Grandmaster 1, your intelligent fixtures on Grandmaster 2 for some separation. There are blackout buttons for those. Top row of buttons are your shortcut keys. We've talked a little bit about the encoders and their screens, and your basic programming buttons. All buttons are grouped in like kind, and each grouping of keys we call a tile, and we'll talk a little bit about those keys and those tiles a bit later. There is an AB Playback Controller with double wide setup, select, stop, back, and go buttons, and a trackball primarily used for mouse control within the graphical window, but that also could be engaged for pan and tilt control if you choose. So looking at the connection features on the back of the desk, there are 4 USB 3 ports, 2 VESA display ports. You could use a third-party VESA to DMX HDMI splitter, and that will allow you to get a third monitor output on this desk. There are 2 network ports. Those are completely separate and isolated network interface cards. We often recommend that the primary network card is used to go to the lighting network, and the second network card is used to go to the building network. We do have certain advantages connecting it to the building network. One of the features that we have is called live support. This will allow tech support to connect to your system over the internet, and where we can do troubleshooting, training, and help you better understand your console. There are audio connectors of line in and line out. There's a single DMX in input, SMPTE in and out. There are 4 DMX outs for hardline DMX. Obviously, over a network, you can expand that up to 100 universes. There are console lights, ports on both sides, Kensington lock slot, and status indicators. Oh, and MIDI. There's MIDI in and out as well. This is showing the second generation processor. The first generation, the video output ports are a little different, as they are HDMI and DVI, but there's not much else that's different. All the MIDI, SMPTE, DMX outputs, network are all the same. A little bit about the system architecture underneath the hood. Everything is connected over and uses a USB 3 infrastructure. So again, we have multi-monitor support, dual network interface, solid state disk drive. It is basic PC architecture, and we have that keyboard drawer with storage. So communication protocols, again, up to 100 universes of DMX per console, so we can communicate DMX 512. We do offer network protocol, DMX over Ethernet with ShowNet, streaming ACN, ArtNet. We can communicate with color kinetics protocols of KINET, both 1 and 2, Pathway. The console is RDM capable, and we have MIDI in and out and SMPTE in and out. One of the greater features that is very unique in the industry is called Strand Advantage, and every Neo console has this capability. So the concept allows you to patch any of our fixtures. So that would be Verilight, Silicon, Showline, or Strand attributed fixtures without consuming your purchased DMX universe authorizations. So basically, if you have a 4 universe Neo, or a Neo that's authorized for 4 universes, you've got 2048 DMX channels. You can address them and move them and use them however you want. However, you can also use universes 5 and beyond and patch them up. As long as you patch them up with our fixtures, we will allow them to output over Neo. So it's a really great feature to allow you to expand your use without incurring additional control costs. We've seen great advantage for people who have coverage for their basic rig, but will often they will often rent fixtures for larger productions, enabling you to rent Verilights without additional control cost. We've seen people take their initial rig and decide that they're going to take their linear product, like the Showline 600 series strips, and expand it to individual cell control for pixel mapping. That will take up a lot of DMX addresses and probably push you into additional universes. And again, you're not forced to purchase additional universe outputs on your console. So a simple example for this is if you have a 1 universe desk, you might have 384 dimmers. Then you have a few intelligent fixtures that are using outputs 385 through 505. So you have, just a small handful of DMX addresses left on that universe. However, you could patch up Silicon, Verilight, Showline products in universes 2 and beyond, and they will output. So again, it's a great feature and very unique in the industry. So we're going to spend just a little bit of time talking about some of the capabilities and what the button tiles offer you in terms of functionality. We're not going to go over every key, but we're just going to talk about some of the basic functions. So on the far left-hand side of the desk for the keys is your playback tile. Most every key here will directly affect output of what the console is doing. So you've got you can release the cue list, go to cues, step up in the cue list, step down, and those are some of the basic keys there. Moving on to the right is the action tile. Neo is fairly simple in that there are truly only 2 actions that you can do. So everything happens with these 2 actions. You're either going to record, which will allow you to store new content, or you can update, which allows you to edit existing content. And that's pretty much what it allows for. The rest of the items here on the buttons on the action tile are primarily going to be your items like cue, group, sub, effect, part, macro, shortcuts to allow you to simply record or update these items. Next, we have the command tile. The command tile is the center of your command line area. This is where one would be doing the majority of key entry. You have your 10 key here for channel selection, and also when recording items by number. So if you're recording a specific queue number or a group or a sub number, that's where you can use that. You have the modifying keys to the right of through, plus, and minus. This combination, with those keys, you can grab any combination of fixtures that you want. To the right of that, you have your three auto-completing keys of on, full, and out. So these, meaning auto-completing, is that you press them and the command is done. You don't even need an at key to preempt it. You don't need the enter key to complete it. If you just go to the console and say one full, that's going to turn one on and put it at its full level. Probably the two or three of the most important keys are at, enter, and release. So to bring up channels, it would be your channel list, then the at key, and then you would provide a numeric level. So 1 at 5 or 1 through 5 at 6 or at 60, enter. Enter is going to complete the command, just like the period on the end of a sentence. Release is going to release anything that has been adjusted since you're outputting your recorded items. So if you're sitting in a queue and you bring up channels, release is going to restore them back to the queue level. If you don't have anything outputted, then bringing up channels and then hitting release is going to release those channels back to where they are off, effectively taking you to a state of black. There are many other keys and functions, but those are the primary ones that we'll go over. To the right of the command tile is the advanced tile. The advanced tile has many useful keys, but some of the primary ones is that second row of buttons: time, delay, and follow. So time will let you change time on a particular queue. Delay, you can provide a hold time or a delay before a particular action occurs. And follow will allow you to create auto follow queues, which functions so that a queue will be triggered automatically after the completion of a previous queue. Sort of at the top of the command tile area are the shortcut buttons. Shortcuts is a unique item to Neo, although it's not that uncommon in function, in that it's basically a single button press that will do any command that the console can do. So you can make these as complicated as you want, but anything that you're repeating frequently on the desk, it might be worth turning that into a shortcut. Above the command tile is the selection and attribute tile. The bottom row are some very useful selection keys, like select active, just select change, select the previous set of channels. Select active is effectively selecting every channel that has a level above 0. So a really fast way to create a blackout would just be to hit select active and then press the out key, and from there you can record your blackout. So a lot of very useful keys here. At the top you have your attribute family keys, and it's important to understand the way that Neo manages all parameters of a moving light. And it does that through collecting them in groupings called attribute families. So the attribute families we have are intensity, position, color, beam, and edge. Intensity is going to collect all of the intensity parameters together. Position is primarily pan and tilt. Color are going to be all color parameters. That could be color mixing parameters or color wheel parameters, as well as timing channels for color. Beam is everything on the inside of the beam of the fixture. So that would be gobos, animation wheels, prism, anything that affects the image of the interior of the beam. Edge affects the perimeter of the beam. So that would be zoom, iris, edge, shutter parameters, all of that would fall under the edge family. The other thing that's important to understand about Neo is that these attribute families can be customized. So you can determine what parameters, if you so choose, go into the beam family and what goes into the edge family, and so on. So it's a very, very flexible, customizable system. There is an effect tile. So these buttons are pretty self-explanatory to allow you to create effects, add steps, add an effect, play and pause. The display tile. This is top right on the desk above your trackball. These are primarily theatrical displays, like opening up patch or going to a group display, or a pull down for all of your different types of palettes, or going into blind to edit information in your cues not live, opening cue lists. So these are primarily theatrical displays. There are some additional buttons that are not collected into a labeled tile. Doesn't make them any less useful. Block will allow you to block a cue. Dimmer allows you to bring up a DMX address rather than the channel. It's great for doing a little lighting detective work to find out what addresses are being used by seeing what output is connected to them. Home is a fabulous button that allows you to take a moving light or an LED and put it back to all of its default information. Park allows you to park channels. The page up and down key allows you to change pages for your submaster page. And close is a button I use quite frequently to close any open floating windows that may be open that I have finished interfacing with. Then every NEO console comes with a quick start guide. There's a printed version that comes in the box. There's also an electronic version under options in the bottom left hand corner of your main monitor, and under manuals and documentation. This is just a 2-page document. I often actually print it out and laminate it and have it next to the desk for basic users. It will give you all the information you need for 100% of the use 80% of the time. So it's going to cover all of the basics for you for conventional programming and for LEDs. It does not get into moving lights. Now what I want to do is talk about some of the great features. Some of these are newer features that are available, but to just get you a better understanding of the vast capabilities that NEO has. So under the view pull down, your standard classic channel grid could be replaced with a view called a color table. And this is designed to just show you the hue output of simple color changing fixtures. It really presents a minimal numerical view, so you're not going to see level information appear in a number. They will be shown in these colored blocks, and intensity will be represented with scale. And in black and white if it's not a color mixing fixture. But this is very advantageous for installations that have large amounts of color mixing LEDs. So it's great for architainment, for architectural projects, bridges, buildings, and it's just there to show you some of the flexibility that NEO has. Another thing on profile effects, and the profile effect is simply an effect that applies a profile, which could be a sine wave, it could be linear, it could be any number of profiles, to a parameter of a fixture. And it could be intensity, it could be pan, tilt, you could apply it to color, to zoom, to really anything you want. And recently we have added an additional parameter to manipulate these profile effects, and that is clustering. So clustering allows you to take a group of fixtures and sort of group them together, or collect them together so that more than one fixture does the same thing. So it allows you to play with resolution on what sort of flexible output you get to your fixtures over a profile effect. Another reasonably new feature, which is extremely handy and popular, is our quick select bar. What this does, and it's accessed from the view pull down under display options, is it will show you text-based information that has been inputted in patch. So from the quick select bar, you can select fixtures that are patched based upon the fixture type, based upon position, purpose, or color, if gel color is used on conventional fixtures. So if you have dimmers that are patched, if you have LEDs, maybe some of our PL products, the Showline fixtures, if you have some of them, our Verilights, the VL2600s, the Event profile, any of those fixtures, you'll have a button that will allow you to access those fixtures by type. So if you want to just grab all of your 2600 profiles or all of your VL10s, you'll have a button there, and you do not have to build a group for that. So I often recommend that users put useful information in for position, for purpose, and for color at that in patch. At that point, you can interface with your lighting system in a much more user-friendly manner. You could say, I just want to select all my fixtures on the first electric, or I want to grab all my area lights or my high sides or my backlights. It's all based upon the text-based information that you put in to the patch, and really minimizes the need to build groups, as well as minimize the need for numerical entry. Right? This allows you to interface with the console using plain English. We also have a new fixture type selection shortcut. So if you are in a situation where you have a rig that has lots of different types of fixtures, this can be extremely handy just as a window for selection tools by fixture type. Another reasonably new, very intelligent window is our frames and gobos. So this is unlike any of the other tabs, where it provides you a window into all wheeled items in your rig. So this example on screen is showing you different color wheels and what the colors are from different types of fixtures. Same thing with gobos, right? This is basically a list of a graphical view of all gobos available across all types of fixtures. The thing that makes this a very useful tool is you can simply grab whatever lights you want and select whatever gobo. If that gobo exists in the light, it will output it. It will send it to that gobo. So you don't have to worry so much about, well, I've got this type of light and this only has these gobos in this wheel, and this other type of light only has these gobos in this wheel. There's also a setting at the bottom that says find closest gobo match. So it is intelligent enough where you can grab a fixture or type of fixture, tell it to go to a gobo, and even if that gobo doesn't exist, it will find its closest graphical match to output. You can also determine that when you select a gobo, do you want it to clear out any other gobos that might be in the beam coming from another wheel? For example, when you go to select the night sky gobo, because that's some fairly small holes, you may want to make sure that if it has another gobo in from another wheel, that it automatically clears that out. So it's a very intelligent interface that allows you to work smarter than the traditional fixture control. Another great feature that Neo has is the ability to set fixture attribute defaults. Where I like to utilize this is in a typical school installation, one will often have many LED fixtures. Some of ours have, in fact, all of ours now have more than 3 colors. So let's say you have a bunch of PL profiles or PL Fresnels, and those are an RGBW fixture. When you turn that on, by default, it's going to give you all color emitters at their maximum outputs. So red, green, blue, and white are all at full. That doesn't always give you the most attractive color for skin tones. So in a school system, you may, well, any system really, you may want it to start out with a much more attractive color output for skin tones. So by setting the defaults, you can have that happen automatically without having to do a second command every time you select a fixture of going to a particular color palette. The thing that's great about this is it works per fixture per show file. So you may want your backlights set to a default color differently than you would your front lights. You may have certain moving lights that when they're pointed straight down, the beam isn't visible because it's in the front of house position, and it can't get around the architecture of the lighting position up in the ceiling. So you want to tilt it up and create a different default for its position. There are tons and tons of applications for this, and it's a really helpful solution to make the beginning of programming for any cue much easier. There is a reasonably new file interface. So if you do options and open or new or save file, you're going to get this new interface. This gives you more flexibility. One of the things we've added to this is our template files. Template files extremely useful for environments where the lighting rig is not going to change very often. And we typically find that in school systems, they don't have the resources to rehang their light plot for every show. So the plot that's installed in commission will often be the one that remains for years. So doing every time that a teacher will start a new production, the last thing you want to do is just go file new, because that's going to wipe out your patch and everything else, and you're going to have to completely start over. So that would force a lot of unnecessary work. By using a template file, you can get your patch as well as palettes, any submasters that are consistent, maybe for house light control or basic use for assemblies and podium looks. Have that all part of your base file. Save that as a template file. Then every time you go to start a new production, instead of starting a new show file, you just simply open that template file, save it as your new production file, and off you go. So it's very, very useful, especially for school environments. I mentioned earlier how we allow for connectivity to the building network, and to take advantage of that, we now allow you to save directly to a Microsoft OneDrive, Google Drive, or Dropbox account. Now you would have to have these accounts set up beforehand, but it's a great way to utilize cloud storage directly from your console. We often find that designers in more professional environments, designers will often want to do their own color picking to save to minimize the amount of verbal information that they have to relay to the programmer. So within the Neo PC software, we have these designer color pickers so that if the designer is sitting in the audience where the console and the operator are back in the booth, they can access this over a network through a laptop with NeoPC, and they could choose from several different interfaces where they can mix and create their own colors uh, right to the console from their laptop. And then from that point, the programmer can store these as palettes, record them into queues, and you're off and running. We've had palettes for quite a while, but a new feature that we have added are presets. So to talk just for a moment about palettes, palettes allow you to store attribute information for quick recall. So you may have color palettes for colors that you use very frequently, or position palettes for down center, for upstage, for different locations on the stage. What a preset does is it will collect all attributes where palettes are usually segregated to position for position palettes, color for color palettes, so on and so forth. Presets will just grab all parameter data. So those are often viewed to be simpler to use and a little easier to understand than palettes. Um, However, for those that do like to use presets for their collected look for the scenes, yet build those presets off of palettes so that you could put your lights down center and in your Lee 201 color palette and then build your preset from that, the preset will nest and remember the palette reference. So they are very powerful. Um, and a new item that we've added that has become an industry standard over the last few years. Magic sheets are often much more appreciated for their graphical flexibility, for being able to show the rig rather than a numerical classic view. So we've expanded this and added simple truss options in Magic Sheet. So you can select a truss, um, identify the length you want, and it'll drop it right in, and then you can rotate and orient it to mimic your light plot. I want to talk for a moment about Neo and the VisionNet integration. Most school systems are going to have an architectural control system, which would be VisionNet, which is available 24/7. It is also going to have a theatrical console, which could be Neo for theatrical productions. And typically, those two systems are completely separate. They really don't communicate with each other. They do talk to the same lighting rig, but um, if you've got house lights on from VisionNet, you can't see that on your theatrical console. You have to manage that from your VisionNet devices, whether it be button stations, slider stations, or touch screens. What we have done is found that there can be real value with the integration of VisionNet and Neo. So they have bidirectional communication where they can communicate with each other, and VisionNet button stations can trigger Neo commands. VisionNet sliders can map and match up to Neo submasters. So there's a lot of bidirectional capability, and there's actually 2 or 3 different ways that VisionNet and Neo can be configured. I go into that in more detail in the VisionNet overview um, that I have been teaching and will continue to teach. Um, so if you need more information on that, feel free to email me or go to strandlighting.com to check out the schedule for future VisionNet overview sessions, because it's extremely powerful what you can do with it. Now, part of the Neo family of products is the Neo Playback Controller. So this offers all the same connectivity options, DMX, network, MIDI, SMPTE, as the Neo does. It just doesn't have the keypad or the built-in encoders or faders. These are typically used either as your backup device or used on permanent installations. When we do museums, we will often have one or two of these where you have a main and a backup. And we are actually starting to do some larger high school jobs where this is the main processor for the architectural control, and then the Neo console interfaces with the two. So again, there's a lot of flexibility for these, but it all runs the same software. It has a 4-inch touch screen on the front, and it allows for seamless integration between the two products. Adding to the Neo family of products, we're excited to announce the Neo Compact 10. This will be part of the next generation of Neo hardware that will be available in the second quarter of this year, 2020. It has the exact same software as Neo. It's going to have powerful command line operation, which will allow for much faster control than many of the entry-level consoles that are out there. It will have 4 DMX universes authorized as a base, expandable up to 10 universes. There is an internal 7-inch touchscreen. It will allow for 1 external monitor. It does have 4 encoders for color, LED, and moving light control, and 10 playbacks on the left side of the desk. So that's a summary of the Neo Control family of consoles. Neo has a solution for most any entertainment, large-scale architectural or entertainment application from a school auditorium, theater, museum, or even Niagara Falls. So that is the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in. We do have a few minutes left in this session.